Today, we are plunging pretty much headfirst into something that feels genuinely game-changing in, the world of video creation. Google's latest AI model, VEO3.
That's right. We've really gone deep into the sources for this one, looking at recent tech news, the Wikipedia entry for VEO,
Yeah?
and even drilling down into the documentation straight from Google DeepMind and Google Cloud.
Yeah, so our mission today, to truly unpack what VEO3 is, understand how it got here, see how it actually works, who can, get their hands on it right now.
And maybe most importantly, figure out what its arrival means for you as a creator and, well, for the entire landscape of video going forward.
Okay, let's dive in then.
Let's do it.
So let's start right at the beginning. What is Google VEO3 like at its core?
Okay. Simply put, VEO3 is the latest version of Google DeepMind's text-to-video AI model. So you feed it a text description, a prompt, and it generates video based on that.
Right. That core function, text to video, we've seen that before in other models.
We have.
So if others do that, what makes this release, the May 2025 VEO3, what makes it the big news?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And according to the sources, this is a pretty significant leap. VEO3 can natively generate synchronized audio right alongside the video it creates.
Wait, synchronized audio, you mean like...
Yeah, dialogue, sound effects, ambient noise, all of it, designed specifically to match the visuals it's generating at the same time.
Wow. So you're not just getting the pictures, you're getting the whole sound world baked right in from the start.
Exactly. And Google DeepMind CEO Demis Sabbas, he's quoted, describing this as the moment AI video generation left the era of the silent film.
That's a powerful way to put it, actually.
It really frames the shift, doesn't it?
It does, because we've looked at earlier platforms, right? Like OpenAI's Sora. You generate the video, and then you were kind of on your own for the audio. Separate tool, separate process.
Totally. This integration, it sounds like a massive step towards, well, a much more seamless creative workflow.
And what are people saying? The early reactions.
They're pretty telling. Users are calling it things like Hollywood in your pocket. Some describe the feeling as scary and exciting at the same time.
I can absolutely see that. Just thinking about some of the examples they mentioned, like prompting something completely wild, like 100 men versus a gorilla at a rave dance-off.
Right.
And getting a video with actual synced audio for that scene, it really does feel like the barriers to imaginative video are just dissolving.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But this capability, it didn't just appear overnight. The sources give us a glimpse into the actually pretty rapid evolution of VEO.
Okay, so walk us through that timeline. How did we get from the start to VEO3?
Well, the journey actually started less than a year ago. The first model, just called VEO, was announced back in May 2024.
Okay.
At that point, Google was talking about generating 1080p videos, maybe over a minute long.
Yeah.
Decent starting point.
Yeah, solid foundation.
Then just a few months later, December 2024, VEO2 arrived. That was accessible through a platform they call VideoFX.
And what did VEO2 bring?
This version pushed the resolution up to 4K, and it brought improved physics and sort of better realism to the videos it generated.
So quickly improving the visual quality and how believable the simulations were.
Right. Then VEO2 became a bit more widely available in April 2025 for advanced users in the Gemini app.
Okay.
Which brings us right up to May 2025 and the release of VEO3, adding that really crucial synchronized audio layer while also continuing to refine the realism and how well it sticks to the prompt.
That's a remarkable pace. Just 12 months from announcement to version 3 with integrated audio.
It really is.
Now, for someone listening who wants to explore this, where does VEO actually live? Within the Google ecosystem, I mean.
So the main creative interface the sources mentioned is called Flow. You can think of Flow as Google's sort of dedicated AI filmmaking environment.
Oh, okay.
It's powered by models like VEO and also Imagen, their image model. It's where the creative user would typically interact directly with these tools.
Got it. And speaking of interacting, who can actually get their hands on VEO3 right now? Is it open to everyone?
Well, according to the sources, for individual users in the U.S., access is currently tied to a Google AI Ultra subscription.
Okay, an Ultra subscription. And what's the investment look like for that?
The tech news article we looked at puts the cost at $249.99 a month.
Oh, okay.
They do mention a promo, though. 50% off for the first 3 months for new users.
So definitely not casual pocket money. It seems positioned for maybe serious enthusiasts, professional creators, or people who really see the immediate value proposition.
That seems right.
What about businesses or developers looking to integrate this kind of tech?
For enterprise users, they can access VEO3 capabilities through Google's Vertex AI platform.
Hmm.
That's currently in a private preview stage, though.
Vertex AI, that's
Yeah.
Google's cloud AI platform, right?
Yeah.
More for businesses.
Exactly. Think of Vertex AI as the place for businesses and developers to build and deploy AI models at scale.
So that's more for integrating VO into like bigger production pipelines or maybe custom applications.
Precisely. The documentation specifically says Vertex AI provides access via the console, a REST API, and a Python SDK. So that confirms it's geared towards those more programmatic, scalable uses.
Right.
But it's worth noting, while Flow is maybe the main creative hub, different versions and capabilities of VO models can also be accessed through other Google spots like Gemini, Google AI Studio, and Vertex AI Studio.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, something that really jumped out from the sources, especially that Google VO3 prompts guide, is how critical the prompt itself is. It's not just a suggestion anymore, is it? It sounds like it's basically your art direction.
Absolutely. Mastering how to ask for what you want, that seems like it's becoming a really crucial skill with these powerful tools.
Yeah, it's not just throwing a few keywords at it, apparently.
Definitely not. The recommendations from Google really emphasize detail and clarity.
So what are some of the key principles they highlight for writing, effective prompts?
Well, one of the most critical ones seems to be descriptive and clear. The difference between a vague prompt and a really detailed one is apparently night and day.
Okay.
They give this example. Instead of just saying a cat playing, which is super generic,
Right.
aim for something more like a close-up tracking shot of a fluffy orange tabby cat batting a ball of blue yarn on a wooden floor, morning light streaming through windows, cinematic 24 FPS.
Wow. Okay, so you're not just describing the subject, you're directing the camera, the lighting, the whole feel of it.
Exactly. It's like writing a mini shot list or a line from a screenplay.
That makes sense. What else?
Another tip is to start with a core idea, then refine. So begin with your basic concept, whatever that is, and then progressively add layers of detail, the setting, the specific actions, the lighting, the mood you're going for.
Build it up gradually.
Yeah. And they also reiterate that common advice for generative AI. Positive prompts work best. Tell the AI what you want to see rather than focusing on what you want to avoid.
Okay, state the positive.
Right. And specifically for VEO3, because of that integrated audio we talked about, it's essential to add visual and audio details.
Ah, right, the sound part.
Yeah, describe the actions visually, but also include descriptions of ambient sounds,
Yes.
specific sound effects you want, or even the emotional tone you want the audio to convey.
So you're literally prompting the soundtrack along with the visuals.
Pretty much. They give this example prompt for a wise old owl flying that includes explicit audio cues like wings flapping, rustling wind, light orchestral score, curious mood.
That's a significant evolution in just prompting itself.
It really is.
Yeah.
Other best practices they mention include specifying camera style and composition, things like tracking shots, dolly moves, aerial views, close-ups, wide shots.
Like you're talking to a DP.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Choosing your desired aspect ratio, they mentioned support for 16.9 cinematic and 9.16 vertical, using reference images.
Oh, you can feed it images too.
Yeah, to guide the aesthetic or maybe ensure a character looks consistent. That gives you more control. And finally, managing your output length by requesting specific durations, like 8 seconds or short intro loop.
It really hammers home that the human skill here is shifting, isn't it? Towards articulation, specific vision, rather than just the technical side of shooting or editing.
Absolutely. And looking at the actual prompt examples provided in the sources, that really brings these concepts to life and shows the sheer breadth of what VEO3 can apparently attempt.
Right. You mentioned the difference between a cat playing and that super detailed version.
Yeah, or the basic owl flying in forest versus the enhanced one with the mood description and the specific sound cues. The difference in potential output is huge.
What other kinds of examples did they show?
Well, they showcase character scenes, even with dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
There's one of an elderly sailor gazing at a giant plate of spaghetti
Okay.
with the included dialogue. This ocean, it's a force. And the idea is VEO3 aims to generate that spoken line and sync it up.
That's ambitious.
Definitely. And then there are those delightfully strange and specific examples that just make you appreciate the AI's flexibility, I guess. A detective interrogates a nervous-looking rubber duck.
Oh.
Or that camping stop-motion scene with a camper saying, "I'm one with nature now,"
Yeah.
and a bear replying, Nature would prefer some personal space.
That's amazing. It highlights its ability to handle really imaginative, even absurd scenarios and try to render them visually and audibly.
It does. But it's not just limited to simple or quirky stuff. The sources also show incredibly complex prompts being handled.
You mentioned one earlier, like a rally race.
Yeah, there's this multi-paragraph prompt for a hardcore off-road rally. It details camera movements, multiple environments, specific vehicle actions like plunging through water and mud, dominant sounds.
Hmm.
Or another one describing thousands of paper squares simultaneously, folding themselves in midair into origami figures that then arrange themselves into a larger pattern.
Okay, that sounds like something out of a high-end animated film or a complex visual effects sequence.
It really shows the potential, right? For generating highly detailed, synchronized, and complex sequences just from text. They mentioned other evocative examples too. A rural Ireland cliff walk, a painterly 2D animated Japanese woodblock style, a keyboard made of candy with crunchy audio.
A candy keyboard.
Yeah, an iridescent moondust plane with crystalline flowers, a classical violinist rehearsing, a close-up of diced onions sizzling in a pan. It suggests the model can handle a vast range of styles, moods, and actions.
So beyond just getting better at generating from text, the sources also talk about a whole suite of new creative controls, especially through Flow and Vertex AI. It sounds like AI video is moving beyond just hitting generate.
Exactly. This is where we start seeing AI not just as a generation engine, but beginning to incorporate aspects of, traditional post-production and direction, all within the same kind of interface.
Really? What kind of controls are we talking about?
Well, there are features like reference-powered video and match your style. This is where you can upload images maybe of characters, objects, scenes, or even a whole aesthetic style, like a specific painting or a cinematic look.
And AI uses that.
Yeah, it uses that visual input to guide the video generation. They showed an example of generating an entire origami neighborhood
Right.
with all the intricate folds based on a style reference image.
That's cool.
And similar examples with origami children and a school bus, all keeping that specific look.
So it's not just interpreting words anymore, it's interpreting visual references to keep an artistic vision consistent.
Precisely. And building right on that is the keep your characters consistent feature. Using reference images again, this tackles a major headache from earlier models.
Oh yeah, characters changing appearance from shot to shot.
Right. They show examples of a cute monster being generated in different scenes, walking, dancing, swimming, even a Candy Wonderland, but it keeps a recognizable look across all of them.
Okay, that alone is huge for anyone wanting to tell a story with recurring characters. Huge.
Isn't it? Then you have controls that mimic traditional camera work. There are granular camera controls that let you specify movements like move back, zoom in, move up, move right.
So you're virtually moving the camera within the generated scene after the fact, or guiding it.
Guiding the generation, yeah.
Yeah.
And then features that really step into VFX territory. For first and last frame lets you basically transition between two images you provide. Like an example was a block of marble seamlessly transforming into a griffin sculpture.
Whoa.
You can use outpainting to expand the video frame, maybe to fit a different aspect ratio or just add more environment. And you can add object or remove object from the scene.
Realistically.
That's the goal. Respecting scale, lighting, interactions, like adding a man with a torch into an existing generated scene, or maybe removing a spaceship that shouldn't be there.
Those are classic visual effects tasks now potentially doable with a prompt or a simple command inside the AI tool. That's wild.
And maybe one of the most innovative controls mentioned is character controls. This is where you can actually use your own body movements, your facial expressions, or even your voice.
Your voice.
Yeah, to drive the animation of an AI-generated character. The example they gave was animating a baby chick character with oversized spectacles, making it talk and gesture expressively based on the user's own performance.
Wow. So you can actually perform the animation into the AI. That's a completely different kind of input.
It really is. And finally, there's Motion Master, which apparently gives you precise control over the exact path objects take within the video.
Okay. So, taken together, all these controls signal that VEO3 and interfaces like Flow are aiming to be much more like sophisticated creative suites, not just, one-click generators.
That's definitely the direction that seems to be heading.
So, let's step back a bit. What does all this actually mean for the creative landscape, for the people making videos? The sources touched on some of the implications and early reactions.
Well, for creators, it definitely suggests a dramatic lowering of the sort of technical barrier to entry for producing potentially professional-grade video.
Right.
As one filmmaker was quoted saying, VEO3 plus flow could be the future of media, allowing you to capture mood, emotion, detailed visual storytelling, and now audio storytelling, essentially from a script or just a detailed paragraph.
It really positions the prompt, or maybe the vision behind that prompt, as the primary art direction, doesn't it? You might not need the expensive gear or a big crew for complex shots if you can articulate them precisely enough to the AI.
That's certainly the promise. However, the early reactions also highlight some interesting human tendencies. A reporter for Gizmodo observed that users were often directing the model towards what they called low-quality content,
Low quality. Like what?
like generic man-on-the-street interviews or haul videos, stuff like that, despite the tool being capable of much more complex things.
That's fascinating. Almost like defaulting to easily consumed familiar internet video formats instead of pushing the boundaries of what the AI can actually do.
It is an interesting observation. Another commentator noted that the tool tended to repeat the same joke in response to different prompts.
Huh. Real.
Yeah, which suggests maybe a limited comedic range or perhaps just a reliance on certain patterns it found in its training data.
And speaking of training data, the Wikipedia source mentions some speculation, though it wasn't confirmed by Google, that the model might have been trained heavily on things like YouTube videos or maybe Reddit posts.
Yeah, that was mentioned. And if that were true, it could potentially offer some explanation for why we're seeing some of these kinds of outputs and user behaviors early on. The model, and maybe the users too, might be defaulting to the patterns they've seen most often in online video.
Hmm. Now, building powerful AI like this obviously brings up significant responsibilities. What did the sources say about Google's approach to safety with VEO3?
Google DeepMind is pretty clear in stating that building AI responsibly is a core focus for them, and they detail several specific measures they've implemented for VEO3.
Okay, like what are some of those key safety measures?
Well, they mentioned proactively blocking harmful requests and also trying to block harmful generated results. They do continuous testing of new features specifically for safety impacts,
Right.
and they involve both their own internal teams and also outside experts to try and find and fix potential problems before things get released.
So trying to anticipate and mitigate misuse ahead of time.
That seems to be the goal, yes. And a key technical measure they highlighted is using Synthway to mark videos made with VEO.
Synthio, that's their watermarking tech, right?
Exactly. It's their advanced watermarking technology designed to help identify AI-generated content for transparency and, provenance.
That seems increasingly important as this AI content gets harder and harder to distinguish from real footage.
Absolutely. They also mentioned conducting specific safety evaluations and checks for what they call memorized content.
Memorized content, what's that?
The goal there is to reduce risks related to privacy or copyright infringement or bias that could pop up if the AI just sort of perfectly reproduced specific things from its training data.
Ah, okay. Preventing it from just regurgitating things it saw. Are there any user-level controls for sensitive stuff, like generating people?
In the Vertex AI environment, specifically, yes. They mentioned person generation safety settings. The default is apparently allow adults only, but there's an option to select don't allow.
Okay.
And the sources also noted that within Vertex AI, getting approval based on the prompt's context might be required for generating people, especially children. So like an extra layer of review there.
Got it. Now, as capable as VEO3 sounds, the sources also acknowledge certain limitations, right? It's not perfect yet.
No, definitely not. They're upfront about that.
What are they still working on?
Well, one key area mentioned is generating videos with truly natural and consistently coherent spoken audio, especially for shorter bits of speech or dialogue.
Ah, so the integrated audio is a huge leap, but getting the nuances right is still tricky.
It seems so. While it can do dialogue, perfecting the lip sync, the natural delivery, avoiding unclear or maybe nonsensical speech in some cases that remains an area under active development.
Okay, so don't expect flawless Hollywood dialogue delivery in every single scenario just yet.
That seems to be the realistic picture right now. But it's also worth noting that Google isn't just developing this in a vacuum. They're actively exploring how AI fits into professional production workflows through various collaborations.
Oh, like who are they partnering with?
Well, they mentioned working with Darren Aronofsky's production company, Primordial Soup, exploring how AI, like Gemini and VEO, might enhance movie production right from early scripting through to storyboarding.
Interesting. Aronofsky.
Yeah. There's also a company called Volley, which is prototyping AI-powered visual experiences specifically for video games. and another called Fel.ai, which is combining VO with other generative media tech to build new kinds of creative tools.
So it shows they're thinking beyond just the individual creator using Flow and looking at how these models could integrate into bigger, more complex production pipelines across different kinds of media.
Definitely seems that way.
Okay, so taking all of this and the really powerful new capabilities, especially the audio, the rapid evolution, those nuanced controls, the early user behaviors, the safety stuff, what does VO3 truly mean for you, the listener, if you're interested in creating content?
Well, I think it undeniably means that the barrier to entry for creating high-quality, complex video is continuing to fall.
Hmm.
Pretty dramatically, actually. Tools like VO3 have the potential to make production tasks that were previously expensive or really time-consuming or just technically very complex accessible to many, many more people.
And it fundamentally shifts the creative skill set, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
we talked about with prompting, understanding how to articulate your vision clearly and specifically to an AI is becoming just as important, maybe even more important than knowing how to operate a traditional camera or editing software.
Absolutely. The prompt is becoming the new script, the storyboard, even the production brief, all rolled into one in some ways. And this power, this accessibility, it also raises some pretty big questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With these capabilities available and the ease of generation increasing so much, how does that change the kinds of stories people can actually tell?
Right.
And maybe on a broader level, what kind of content are we going to see potentially flooding the internet when generating detailed, complex videos with integrated sound, just from a text prompt, becomes significantly easier for almost anyone?
It is. It's a lot to consider. So we've taken a deep dive into Google VO3 today. We looked at that headline-grabbing synchronized audio feature, traced its really quick development, explored who can access it, and spent a good chunk of time on the art and science of prompting this powerful tool.
Yeah, and we also highlighted those sophisticated new creative controls that seem to push AI beyond just simple generation.
Yep.
We touched on those interesting, maybe slightly concerning early user reactions and behaviors, Google's approach to safety, and the limitations they still acknowledge.
It's clearly a significant step forward in AI video creation, no doubt about that. But, reflecting on our whole conversation, doesn't it leave you with kind of a fascinating final thought?
What's that?
Well, we saw how capable the model apparently is, right? Generating incredibly detailed, complex sequences from those really elaborate prompts, the off-road rally, the origami figures.
Yeah, impressive stuff.
Yet, some of the early user behavior seems to gravitate towards much simpler, almost low-quality internet formats or repeating jokes.
Yeah.
So it kind of raises the question, where does the true art lie in this new world? Is it just in the raw power of the tool itself? Is it all about the cleverness of the prompt you write?
Or is it still ultimately about the human vision and the intention behind it all? The ability to guide this incredibly powerful engine towards something genuinely original or meaningful or truly creative rather than just churning out what's easy or derivative.
Exactly. How will creators navigate that balance between this amazing new accessibility and the ongoing pursuit of, well, quality and originality? It's something to think about.